Today I want to start exploring a little more carefully some of the variables that influence the quality of our tone on the saxophone. Many of these are described in kind of a backwards way in the handout packet on pages 5 and 6 of the handout packet, the solution to common tones problems for saxophone. So we're going to go at it from a different angle. Hopefully the more ways we look at it, the more understanding you'll have. The kind of variables I want to look at, number one today is how much mouthpiece goes into your mouth. And I'll explain exactly what I mean by that. Number two, I want to look at the position of the lower lip, how much is drawn over the bottom teeth, and exactly what happens with the lower lip can have a significant effect on the tone. This is all assuming that the air is perfect, and none of us has perfect air, so it's always good, before we talk about tone, the first thing we should do is review the air, which is always supported by perfect posture in a perfect world, where we sit up, back off the back of the chair. You can feel the edge of the chair under your high thigh or almost to your butt, so that way you've got a position forward on the chair. You keep the head and neck erect, and the neck strap is pulled high enough so the mouthpiece will go right to your mouth without having to lift the instrument, or more commonly sag your neck and look down and pinch off your neck. We want to avoid that. The air has to have free movement out of our throat and mouth. And then pushing, supporting the air, developing the pressure behind your belly button with kind of a flex muscles down there, a very strong feeling behind your belly button, as if you're tightening your stomach muscles, and someone's going to come up and punch you in the stomach, but you tighten them up so it doesn't hurt. That's the feeling we want down there. It should be very firm. Any softness is an indication that your air is not nearly as good as it should be. So with perfect air, we'll talk about some of the embouchure variables that can really have a major effect on saxophone tone. Before we do that, we should introduce a rule that is common to all reed instruments: saxophone, clarinet, oboe, bassoon. It doesn't apply to flute because flute doesn't use a reed. But on the reed instruments, basically, the more reed that's inside your mouth, the easier it is to blow. The less resistant the instrument is, and it feels easier to get a sound. So students like that. We all like that. I think we're all basically lazy. So the more mouthpiece, the more reed, and in case of the saxophone, the more reed and mouthpiece that goes into your mouth, the easier it is to blow, the less resistant it feels. And that allows you to work less hard behind your belly button with the air support. So also, at the same time as it gets easier to blow, when you put more mouthpiece and reed in your mouth, the tone becomes less controlled. We have less control over the quality of the tone. It starts to sound spread, and then eventually it will sound unpleasant and edgy, honky, if you will, squawk. It will lead to squawks and squeaks eventually if you put enough in your mouth. So this would be an ideal tone. At least the best I could do this morning. Okay, if I put too much mouthpiece in my mouth, you can see I'll move closer here. This is where I normally play. This is a normal tone. If I put quite a bit more in my mouth, edgy, squawky, honky tone I was trying to describe before. So all I change is the amount of mouthpiece in the mouth. This is normal, once again, or my best. Then you can put more in your mouth, and it's going to start getting edgier, squawkier by degrees. And eventually you'll lose control over all kinds of things, and it becomes very messy. Conversely, it's possible to put too little in your mouth, and you'll start to get kind of a stifled, fuzzy, unclear tone. Here's a good tone. Here's less mouthpiece than I'm used to using. It's not as big. It's a little stifled sounding. That's a better tone. So the more mouthpiece, the easier, more free-blowing the saxophone feels, which is appealing to students, which is okay. It's okay that it's appealing, but the tone is never as good because we don't have as much control. You get more reed vibrating in your mouth. It starts getting kind of wild and harder to control. Today I'd like you to experiment with that variable in your practice. You can measure it if you want. I've studied this for years. You're welcome to do the same. I measure how much mouthpiece goes in my mouth by forming my embouchure, feeling my teeth, top teeth on the top of the mouthpiece, and then I place my index finger against my top teeth and against the mouthpiece. So I mark a spot on the mouthpiece where my teeth are sitting. And then I mark it with my finger, and I take it out, and I have actually measured that with a scale or a ruler over a period of years. And that's how I've come up with this little model for how much mouthpiece goes in the mouth and how it affects the tone. Normally, if you're interested, I have 11 or 12 millimeters of mouthpiece inside my mouth. That's typical for most people I know, professional players. So if you're interested, you're welcome to measure that. I wouldn't necessarily say your students have to do that, but you should know how these have to do anything, but you should know how these variables play into tone quality. And to a certain extent, we want to let our students play the way they feel comfortable playing, but also to a certain extent, we want, tone qualities that can blend and are more useful in a variety of situations. Your students will have more fun the more opportunities they get to perform and play and people they get to work with. That's one of our objectives. So keep that in mind and study that a little bit today, and you can review it again tomorrow. The other variable I want to introduce today is the position of the lower lip over the bottom teeth. Obviously, there's an infinite variety of degrees of the lower lip coming over the bottom teeth. At one extreme would be a whole lot of lower lip over the bottom teeth to where the red part of the lip actually disappears inside your mouth. And that's we'll explore how that tone sounds. Normally, when I play, I've studied this for years with a lot of people, and there's still a thin line of red still showing if you look very carefully out the front. Well, that's no good. Normally there's not a lot drawn over the bottom teeth, but there's a little bit. If you took it to the other extreme and did not put the lower lip over the bottom teeth, we lose a lot of control, and it starts to sound pretty unpleasant. Occasionally I'll see players like this in high school or junior high. It starts to get honky, uncontrolled, and pretty undesirable. Also quite out of tune. So if you see that, that's a signal that something can be improved. Ideally, it's a balance, between ease of playing and the best quality. Ideally, you want a balance between, we want the best quality tone we can get with a reasonable amount of effort. I think that's a good way to describe what we're looking for. And exactly where you fall, how much, every person's going to play a little bit differently. But in your practice today, I would like you to explore those two variables: the amount of mouthpiece that passes into your mouth, which actually is the amount of reed that is inside your mouth, and the position of the lower lip over the bottom teeth. How much lower lip you take over the bottom teeth. And go through those, that tone production handout, Solutions to Common Tone Problems for Saxophone, on pages 5 and 6, and you can see how those play into tone in a variety of ways. And I want you to study that. That's information that will be on the test. I think that's some of the most important stuff you can get out of this course. So I'll see you again tomorrow.